daily allegory through astrological divination. Today we're going to start with our affirmation, which is, I reclaim my name, my mind, and my life. Every lie collapses, every stolen piece returns, and my truth stands documented and unshakable. Today's story is about a man's life that detonates when a single buried record surfaces and he realizes that the woman that he called Mom is actually his aunt. His entire origin story engineered as a long con so his own family could commit theft by deception without raising suspicion. As he digs deeper, he uncovers an even darker layer. An ex-girlfriend persuaded a doctor to forge paperwork labeling him as insane. Then recruited other exes to echo the narrative, creating a false consensus meant to justify stripping him of rights, money, and credibility while the community looked the other way. When the truth begins leaking in public view, neighbors, officials, and bystanders who once dismissed him suddenly demand answers, not out of virtue, but fear, because their silence now reads like complicity in a moral failure that everyone can now see. The tarot shadows the unraveling. The devil reveals the binding, deception, and the control. The magician exposes the tricks, documents, and manufactured reality. And the chariot marks the man's turning point when he stops begging to be believed and drives straight through the lies to reclaim his name. Today's story is called The Bloodline of Paper. He found out by accident because lies rarely collapse when you're looking straight at them. It was a clerk's typo to kick loose the first brick. A birth certificate request returned with a note that didn't make sense. A line about maternal guardianship where mother should have been. At first he laughed, the way people laugh when reality misbehaves. Then he saw the name. The same last name, but different first. His mom wasn't listed as his mother at all. She was listed as his aunt, his legal custodian, a guardian, a placeholder, a person playing a part. That night, the air in his apartment felt staged. Photos on the wall looked like props. Stories he'd heard his whole life replayed like a faint scene running through them, like badly edited film. Under a sky flaring with Leo, stellium, Mars, Sun, Venus, and Mercury, his pride didn't explode outward. It condensed into a fierce, silent will to know. The more he looked back, the more he saw it. Childhood gaps where questions were punished. Relatives who corrected him way too quickly. The way money always seemed to move around him, but never to him. The way everything bordering the truth was quickly labeled a scam and irrelevant. In the new angle of truth, every memory became a clue. The family story, his story, it had been manufactured for theft. Not a quick theft, though. An elegant one. Theft by deception stretched across decades, wrapped in tradition, coded in family values. They raised him inside a narrative that kept him distant and small. So no one would ask why accounts didn't have his name, why inheritances passed temporarily through other people, why decisions about his life were always handled for his own good, they called it. Saturn in Pisces gave to lie a soft face, misty, spiritual, plausible. Saturn conjunct Neptune in the ninth provided belief used as anesthesia. Saturn trine Lilith in the 12th, the buried truth kept breathing in the dark. And then came the second trap. More brutal because it was modern, official, and stamped and signed. An ex-girlfriend, someone who had once held his face in her hands and sworn she loved him, went to a doctor with a story. She brought carefully selected evidence, curated texts taken out of context, emotional allegations filed like paperwork. She didn't need to prove that he was insane. She only needed to plant a document that looked legitimate enough to tilt the world and alter people's perception of him. She recruited other exes to echo the narrative. A course, if you will, of concern that made the accusation feel real because it came from multiple mouths. The forged declaration spread quietly through institutions like poison through water. Unstable, unsafe, drug addict, lazy, incompetent, therefore controllable. That's when the community's moral failure became a machine. People didn't need to believe it fully. They only needed to believe it enough to stay comfortable. Lawyers who should have questioned documents didn't. Officials who should have verified them didn't. They didn't even question them. They only took one side of the story. Due process, if you will. Neighbors who saw red flags pretended that they were curtains. Everyone who benefited from the convincing of assuming he was the problem. In the shadows of Saturn sextile Uranus in the 8th, the coup became clinical. Old world greed executed with modern method. Locked accounts, redirected mail, protective petitions, sealed decisions. It was theft disguised as care, control disguised as concern. And through it all, he kept feeling a strange pressure in the back of his mind, as if something unseen was tugging him towards the truth. The North Node, Saturn, Neptune, Pisces, stellium didn't let the lie remain stable. It dissolved certainty and forced revelation. Dreams became sharper than waking. Names surfaced in his sleep. Places he'd never been called to him. A pattern began to emerge. Every time he got close to the truth, the people around him reacted like cornered animals. Gaslighted harder, escalated things faster, tightening the net, if you will. That's when the tarot began showing up like an omen. The symbols appeared everywhere on social media, in graffiti, in the stained glass window of a church that he passed by one night. The devil, chains disguised as choice. The magician, the forged reality, the sleight of hand, the community spell. Death, not as a body, but the end of a false identity they built over him. The necessary severing, if you will. And finally, the chariot. The moment he stopped asking permission to exist and did it on the fly, without permission. He began moving like a man possessed, not by madness, but by clarity. He requested records, he filed appeals, he gathered contradictions, he tracked signatures and timestamps. He found the first forged document and compared it to the doctor's usual language until the seams began to show. He found emails that proved coordination. He discovered financial pathways that didn't match family stories. The deeper he dug, the more the lie panicked. Friends turned distant, strangers watched him too closely. The old concern narrative returned with new urgency. He's spiraling. He's paranoid. He's not well. But paranoia doesn't produce receipts. And he did. And he had receipts in abundance. Then the town shifted. Not because they suddenly grew conscious, but because the truth made them look ugly. A whole community that had watched a man be dismantled now demanded answers. Not to protect him, but to protect themselves. Their silence was becoming evidence. Their inaction was becoming history. They had allowed theft and reputational murder to happen in plain sight, and now the public glare was turning towards them like a searchlight. When the final revelation hit, when it became undeniable that his mother was his aunt, that his life had been structured as a long con, that a forged insanity declaration had been weaponized to steal from him, the town felt it like it was holding its breath. People who had once ignored him began speaking in righteous tones, scrambling to rewrite their roles. The same mouths that once called him unstable now called him brave. The same officials who looked away now demanded investigations. He watched them with a calm that even scared himself. Because by then, something in him had died. The version of himself that needed their approval. Death had done its work. He had died as they wanted, but not in the way that they had hoped. See, you cannot kill an angel of death in life. You only assist him in resurrection and gaining strength in the process. The old story was gone. The false family myth had burned down. The community's spell finally broke. The magician's tricks were now exposed. The devil's chains were recognized for what they were. And the chariot moved forward anyway, with or without their apology. We're going to end this with the invocation of the true name and the unforged record. By the law that cannot be rewritten, by the truth that survives every performance, I call now the original record to rise. Let the false parentage fall away. Let the forged story unravel at the seams. Let every paper spell, signature, stamp, and sealed lie lose its authority over my name. I invoke the force of structure and disclosure, Saturn that defines, Saturn that corrects. moving through Pisces to dissolve deception and harden truth into fact and absolute truth. By the current of the unseen, I call Lilith in the hidden house, not for chaos, but for revelation. Bring the shadow to the surface, expose the motive, the method, and the mask. By the fire of the Leo stellium, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, grant me courage that does not tremble, speech that does not bend, and focus sharp enough to cut through fog. By the North Node's pull through Pisces, let destiny favor clarity over comfort, and let every silent witness feel the weight of what they have allowed. I ask that what was stolen be restored in right order, identity returned, rights restored, resources reclaimed, and every false declaration undone by truth and evidence. May every forged document be revealed as forgery. May every accomplice face their reflection. May every gatekeeper who looked away be compelled to look. I stand now in my true name. I seal my mind from distortion. I walk forward with record, reason, and resolve. So the lie collapses, so the truth is filed, so the rightful life is reclaimed. By the divine authority I contain, let this law be law that underlies law. And so it is. I'll see you guys in the next one.